I'm exploring a watercourse that's new for me. Very often when I've been on one of these big adventures, I sort of make a practice of it to take the time to explore my own backyard again afterwards, to kind of get back in. And in fact, managing the transition between expedition and home work and micro expeditions and being at home, all these transitions are quite tricky. But if you manage them well, there's a lot to be had there. So I'm on an exploration behind my backyard, and I've come across, I knew that this watercourse was here. I knew it was here, but I'd never really just walked up to it before. And there's some really nice little hammocking spots right over there. Obviously there's a lot of trees that came down. This is mostly from last year. But I'm going to go and explore up there and see. I know that there's a little cave up there as well, and I'd love to see the place that this water comes from. So I think I'll just have a little bit of a scramble about in here. Over there, a shuffle. And yeah, let's go have a look. Probably up here and then up there, so up at this little place, and we will see. All good anyhow. Yeah, nice to be home. Good to be on big adventures, but nice to be home. Crazy stuff, it's like middle of February. So quite steep, yeah, a bit over 40 degrees. The slab there of the river looks very inviting, but it is super slippery, having tested it. So I'm just going up along here. A neat thing to do if you want to know quite how steep something is you put your stick down like this, and then you take your iPhone. And my iPhone has got a neat little app on it called Snow Safe. So you take your iPhone, and it has a clinometer on it that measures the incline. So you take your stick, you put this on here, and it gives you roughly an average. So yeah, pretty steep. I'd be happy skiing that. Certainly from a mountaineering point of view, it's not at all steep. But yeah, then you know. You can press hold, and then you can actually lift it off. So avalanches start in the sort of 35 to 37 degree range. So there you go. That's what you have to know. So here we don't have any snow right now, hence the little exploration. So just like with all the other terrains, you need about 10 hours to really feel at home. And you start to then be able to see things like you can see here, just down here. Yeah, that's a game trail. Easier to see from above, but also able to be seen from below already. Carries on through there. And then it's also all a little about micro kind of navigation here, and see where it's easiest to go. You will be tempted to follow the leaves because it looks like that's flattest, but actually you don't always want flat. So in this case, actually this here could be better, but it's not that steep, so I'll probably just go straight up. But it's just like with anything else, it's about savvy choice of where to be so that you can maximize the enjoyment. On this kind of ground, I do also have a little rope, so I've got like a 15-meter bit of reepschnoer, so I can just secure myself off any drops, but it's not necessary here. If it was icy, if this was harsh, then I'd be wearing crampons anyway. So But that's the kind of terrain we have, and I love it very much. And it makes you, it's quite a meditation to just kind of find your way up it, see what's going on up there. And maybe I find a nice little hammocking spot up there somewhere too. It's nice to be near the water. So a lot of times this is really just about oozing. You know that a lot of this stuff is not actually going to, I mean, you can't stand on it for very long, but if you get a bit of momentum up, then it doesn't really matter, because by the time what you're standing on is sort of sliding away, you're already on the next thing. So it's a bit like kind of 4x4 attraction. So we'll see if I can demonstrate that a little bit here. We'll see. So this is a pretty nice view down here. It's actually really good to be kind of scrambling around in my forest again. And I know you wanted to hear about the Viking stuff, so I will tell you about the Viking stuff. First, well, where to start, right? It was amazing. We took an open boat, a knar, but a very small one, about 9 meters, out of Struis Bay. And sailed it round Cape Agulhas and sailed to Hermanus and finally over to Gordon's Bay, and it was just awesome. I mean, the boat flies along. On the really best day of sailing we had, we were doing 20 to 25 knots of wind, unreefed, and we had the top reef in because we're still not quite confident yet in fully letting the sail out, because it seems quite long for kind of where the spar would be vis-a-vis the deck then. But as we're getting to learn the sail, we're finding out we can actually balloon it quite a bit more than we think, and so the spar isn't near the deck. Anyway, big sail and about a little light on ballast, but it meant that this boat just was like a surfboard. We had crew in the rigging, so holding on to the stays and just standing on the gunnels, just propelling her through these big waves. They're swells that were coming in from Antarctica, so they weren't scary in any way. I mean, they weren't steep, but they were some of them were quite high, and sometimes one would sort of bulge out and catch the stern, and this boat would just, because it's basically shaped like a canoe, this boat would just sort of lift, and you'll see it on some of the film from the raw footage. Maybe I'll cut a little piece into here, that the hip just lifted and the wave just went underneath, and the sailing was just amazing, really fine. Boat is awesome. And the sailing was just amazing, really fine. I mean, we have lots of stuff to do. Obviously, we before the North Sea, we need to put an inboard motor in her, and we need to probably add a strake and maybe seal the deck and have some scuppers. We had to adjust the oar locks and plenty of things. But basically, the thing about this boat is that it's versatile. You know, do you need it to be more of a broad reach skiff than take a bunch of ballast out, or get in the back and put full sail on and just go? If necessary, you can help with prying at the bow with 2 of the oars against the ribs, which are really structural, and keep the boat really properly under control. You can do it at the back as well, so now it looks like a whitewater canoe surfing down a rapid. Happens to be being pulled forward by a sail. But you can have a person on each corner. You can have 2 people on each corner with big strong oars prying against oar locks. So then it becomes a sort of a massive whitewater raft, but much more nimble. Put a bit more ballast in it and sheet it down a bit and bring the spar about. We brought it about 2/3 down the mast and put both reefs in, which we did at sea, by the way. Just bringing the spar and the whole sail down at sea in big seas with you know, a fresh breeze, not a terrible gale, but just a fresh breeze, you know, one that was substantial and you had to take consideration of as you were managing the sail. So this thing comes down. Ullman had put these 3 handles on the sail, so you can just the foredeckman, which is usually 2, so me and a strong guy, Jay usually, or Andre, will be jumping on this thing, pull it down, get it into the boat, the spar leans across the gunnels, you tie the reefs up and just lift it back up again. And here we have our beautiful almond sail here, 2 reefs on. It's got a little bit too wild for us out there. Full sail. And the 2 reefs are beautiful here, big swells, so all good. It's like no problem, all the while keeping the boat in a good stable position by using the oars, and not necessarily in the oar locks, just in the paddle mode against the ribs, so that you don't end up snapping the oars off due to water pressure. But the oars we found are super interesting. You can feather them in all directions, so if you have 4 oarsmen, 1 on each corner, and mostly they're just feathering the oar, just slightly letting it ride over the waves, or keeping it in board altogether. You have a very adaptive way of managing the boat's attitude in the water. So very interesting that. What else? Just goes fast. 8 to 8 knots whole speed was definitely possible. And finally we ended up in Gordon's Bay and sort of took our gear off the boat and had a gin and tonic and sorted the gear out, and next morning at 5 I was at the airport, and here I am. So quite an amazing number of adventures along the way, from going for a hike and sort of being accosted by and scouted by baboons, a big silverback, like, okay. Yeah, that would be a baboon. Ooh, one that's making off in the other direction. A vine snake that got into the car, and you know, total menace. And it's actually a quite venomous snake, but then Rian, the cameraman, told me that, okay, yes, it's very venomous, but it's back-fanged like a coral snake or a sea snake, so it's actually quite hard to get bitten by it. But still, a snake in the car. Beautiful, huge, like rain spider, a huntsman, almost white, in the rafters of the place I was sitting, and me not at all nervous about it. In St. Lucia, awesome warm ocean, and just being in the bush out there, and rhinos and giraffes and elephants and puff adder and crocodile and hippo and just, you know. Oh, and a blue bottle, a miniature Portuguese man of war that stung me on the hand, but it was fine. So that was also quite weird, and then the transporting of the boat and the making the boat ready and the interacting with the amazing generosity of the people where we stayed. So starting with Point Yacht Club, just very, very kind, let us camp on their dinghy field and sort out the boat there, and then finally so sailing around there a bit, and gave us an escort, and we learned how to tow her properly and how she would react, and rode her upwind into 15 knots of wind, and it was just very, very important, very good, looking at the mangrove swamps and all that stuff in Durban. And then over to Struisbaai, where it was just incredibly kind people again. The whole topic of moving such a boat cross country, you know, first 600 kilometers from Joburg, and then another more than 1,000 to to the put in for the actual rounding of the Cape. Also quite exciting. So learning the crew, learning how to solve problems together. Also very interesting dynamic, because we had each one of us was chosen because we have a certain kind of eloquence in our experience, because we have an affinity to the Viking stuff, because we have some hardcore experience of one sort or another that to bring to the table. But none of us had actually, of course, ever sailed a Viking boat around the tip of South Africa, because it hadn't been done yet. So it was an exercise in how to learn together and solving problems along the way and making good decisions. And it was manifest, our ability to learn was manifest in things like Björn on the pier head at Struisbaai, on the wave breaker there, the breakwater, talking to and listening to the local fishing guys who were just going, maybe you wait till tomorrow, you know. And then, yes, of course we did. It's those guys helping us get some fishing line, you know, because we wanted to go fishing, and they were just being super generous. It's Alan and everyone we met there. And it's about just sort of finding ways of, and most of us were also solo expeditioners, so it's also just about finding ways of having your own space versus not. And then Shannon and I were perfect in the tent like that, because we're both used to cramped kind of conditions, and she's used to being on Clipper World all year. You know, she knows how to live in a confined space that's very loud and wet. So that was nice, interacting and then own space very fluidly. We felt that sort of lying as sardines in that tent was pretty good like that. And just being really transparent with each other. So right at the beginning of the trip, I said to everybody, well, you know, basically, unless I'm saying something like, I'm annoyed with you because, or when you do this, it makes me feel X, I'm not. If I'm just being grumpy, I'm probably just being grumpy because I didn't get enough coffee or whatever, I'm moody. And you can tell me and I'll fix it as best I can. But if I'm not saying I'm annoyed with you, then I'm not. But at the same time, I also said, so equally, if, you know, please say to me, I'm annoyed with you because, or you are doing this and wrong, or, you know, you idiot. All these things are fine, and I'll do my best to fix whatever it is. But I also won't go seeking out, you know, tiny subtle hints 24/7 of whether it's okay. You just have to trust each other that we'll say something about it, and please feel free to be as blunt as you like. It's hard to offend me. So that helped a lot, and we had some really good, just open interactions. You know, sailing a small boat on an open ocean is in fresh conditions it's trying, at least, to say the least. But we now are so confident. I mean, you could imagine this boat. You could imagine it going into the north, and you know, you're thinking, ooh, there's going to be maybe some growlers there, some sort of small ice floes or lumps and bumps of ice. Well, you just would nail an extra layer of oak onto the front of it. You know, an extra inch or two of oak on the front, and displace the ballast a bit to compensate and carry a bit less cargo, and off you go. It's remarkable, the concept of this kind of versatile boat in a basically Voyager canoe shape, and then you basically make it what you need to make of it. You could fully deck it, and put a little cabin on the back where the ahead of where the tillerman is, and behind the mast. You could fully wood that out. Just brilliant. So much for the boat for now. I know you wanted to hear about it, but you know, there's a lot to tell. I will continue up this path now, and then we'll see. Thanks for putting up with my jabba. Good to be home. Yeah, the other thing about, of course, being on the boat all the time, and I move around on the deck a lot, is that it's really super cool for your proprioception, for your sort of ability to move. And I can imagine Vikings kind of farmers basically getting on board these little ships for a month in rough weather. They're going to be pretty strong by the end of it, for sure. So, off we go. So one of the things about, of course, about being on the boat is that you're continuously in movement, because the boat's moving all the time. Even if you're just standing or sitting or lying down, you're in movement. So you come out of this, these hours on the boat with a fully activated movement center, and it carries forward into every day. So I went climbing the other day with Brigitta, and it just felt great. It was just the nicest thing, and thank you, Brigitta, very much for helping me with my little fear thing. And it was just super nice to lead those things, and it just felt great to be on the rock with you. So thank you for that. See you on Monday, next Monday. But I think that was a big part of this sort of physical versatility, is this ability to, or just this passive conditioning that the boat does by you just standing there. And I think some stuff similar like that happens when you try to, go on these steep things here or skiing. Definitely a place to be cautious. So how to describe this style of movement? It's quite complicated. I guess what I'm doing is, instead of determining, I'm going to put my hand here, my foot there, I'm sort of putting my consciousness or my attention in my belly button and willing it to go in a certain direction, and then letting my hands and feet figure out how to do that, because they've had enough time in this environment. They're generally pretty smart, smarter than my head anyhow, in terms of moving. So, and when I kind of start feeling like the things are slipping, I do that even more. So I put the center of my attention in my belly button. You can see we're on quite a steep bit here. And instead of, finding the balance is then a matter of pushing the belly button in the direction I want it to go with whatever points of contact I have. And then the limbs do sort of figure out what to do. And as I lose traction with one limb, I just use the next one. So it's kind of like a lizard 4x4 kind of thing. So, but I always have a tree below me in the fall line. I'm not going to hurt myself doing this. It's just really good for your proprioception, and also when you're mountaineering and you're in moderate terrain and all this is maybe 10 degrees steeper, it's basically, a lot of it's this terrain, and it's good to be very fluid in it. So yeah, imagine this now, 10 degrees steeper, and it's full of snow and ice. Suddenly you're on a rope in mountaineering, believe you me. And the other thing, of course, is also just to make beautiful movements using the trees and everything else, and it just basically treat it like scrambling, or because it is kind of scrambling, but make beautiful movements, be fully aware in your body, enjoy selecting where you're going to put your feet. It all encourages left brain, right brain synchronization and proprioception, and it's just nice. So I'm going up there. I'll see y'all later. Shangri-La up there. my little route up here. Wow, Shangri-La. I must find a better way into this from the top that goes quicker. So I'm going to go around the side here to the right and see what kind of forestry track I can access to get in that. Wow. On my own doorstep. Awesome. Haha, I knew there would be treasure here. Look at this nice cave here. Yes, yes. Plenty of good spots for hammocking. Also, very well protected, as you can see. Yes, quite nice indeed. Cool. Shangri-La is up there somewhere. There it is. Wow, let's get a bit closer. Look up. There now. Yep, indeed a cave. Don't know how deep. So I'm on my way down there now, on this kind of track, and I'll be on some kind of road soon. But so nice to be on a little micro explore in my own territory. You know, this is just not an area I've been in much, and yeah, nice to be out here. And sure does feel good to be in a forest. So here we are at a crossroads, as often is with these things. And plenty of you have been asking me about like what it is like to come back from one of these things, and actually this one's been easier than, let's say, the Hardangervidda one was, because that was sort of 6 weeks totally on my own. And here I had, you know, plenty of logistics, 11 other people, you know, plenty of civilization contact. But it is difficult, and I have a structure for properly getting back home again, which definitely includes hooking up with my buddies. So thank you, Sepp, yesterday for that really cool day out, getting in my forest, going for a long walk, sleeping enough, eating enough, drinking enough water, getting back to the foods I usually eat, doing really kind of structured things inside my own routine helps with the transition, particularly because I don't want to lose anything of what was instilled on the boat. I want to integrate it, so I want to really kind of also savor this how this being that was changed on the boat comes into my sort of life space and what I'm doing with it. And, you know, climbing is great, and, you know, different point of view on things, and adventurousness +1, and, you know, all that stuff. So that's why it is, and that's why you need your good buddies. So I love the feeling of snow under my feet. Yeah, it's awesome. Oh, wet snow this though. Not much of winter. Whoa. Track. How about that? Interesting. Interesting. So there's the weather coming. I love being on the end of the walk when the front is coming in. Quite nice. And so the Elf Valley is just here, so I'll go for a stroll behind this little hill and back to the house. Very nice. Yeah, a great day of exploring. I just walked out this early afternoon with some stuff and thought, yeah, let's just see what I feel like doing, and this is what it ended up being, so I like it. Woohoo! Don't worry, yes, plenty of rain gear in my bag. Ooh, now the weather's getting nice and spooky here. Look at this. Quite some wind. Ooh, good to be out in the open soon. Woohoo! Love it. You have to mind your timing, of course. You have water ice all the way down the road, which is awesome for me because I brought my grippers. I can walk on this like nothing. Yee! So down the valley, Elf Valley, on my way home.